Having spoken about a side of my father's abuse in which he tried to induce pain, or certainly the fear of pain, I'm going to talk about his efforts to induce humiliation by insulting and by belittling me and the rest of my family. To start off, I'm going to quote his favorite expression, which he used occasionally when he thought I had said something stupid, or indeed when I had said something that was fairly silly, or when he wanted to express his disagreement with one of my jokes, to rate it down. He would say, meaning, let's kill them and make others. In other words, okay, we've got our children, we're not happy with them at all, let's just kill these guys and make new ones. And that was something that he said fairly often, as a joke supposedly. And he also had a tendency to say, don't be stupid because the country is teeming with stupid people, whenever I did something that he thought was stupid. He again said this with in a very strange tone. It was supposed to be crude and humorous at the same time. I would find it difficult to replicate. And he had this term he used to make fun of me and my brother, which was "puca blaga prosta," which is translated as little, flaccid, stupid dick. That was his attitude towards us. He did ridicule me directly quite a lot and did belittle me. I was, I think, a lot more successful at school than my brother. Nevertheless, he did call me handicapped, a cretin, an idiot, stupid, ad libitum. I wouldn't say that he called me with such things very, very often, but nonetheless, he did call me these things over the course of time for various reasons, whenever he didn't like something I did, whenever he didn't like my character overall. And he often said, I remember when I was in high school, in the early years of high school, that I couldn't get on in the world, that I should focus on the real world. I was really enjoying writing at that time, and he said that my brother would have to take care of me when I was old, because I wouldn't be able to support myself financially, which of course turned out to be a complete fabrication. He would insult me as well whenever I tried to gain independence from him. For example, there were these forums, I was chatting on them with game designers. I really like game design. I am slowly building my own games. I had several attempts at making a game, but they always petered out because I didn't have, I suppose I had exterior motivation but not inner motivation. But when I spoke to these game designers, my father said that they were losers who were living in their parents' basements. Now, of course, these were game designers who were actually working in the game design industry, and I'm not bragging about this at all. In fact, I think that the level of quality of what I brought to the discussions was very low, but nonetheless, I was happy with it. I learned a lot from them, and I'm very grateful for their patience towards me. I was also, I behaved in a very borderline fashion at that time, as in displaying traits of borderline personality disorder. Not saying I actually had it, maybe I did. That's something I will discuss later. And I kind of clung to them. I knew that my father was lying. I knew that these guys were a lot better than he was, in terms of personality and in terms of really everything. I was concerned about coming to my father for help because I knew he was a scumbag. I knew he would try to ridicule me, but sometimes, on a few occasions, I just thought, okay, maybe he could really be a nice person. Maybe we could actually have a reasonable sense of family together. I just thought like that when I was in high school and earlier, but that was a complete mistake. He is not the kind of person who can ever establish a family, can ever be part of a family. He's just a parasite. So I sought him to help me with understanding mathematics concepts, and he just laughed at me. He accepted, and he came and taught me, and he showed me stuff very, very briefly, and he ridiculed me for having had issues with such simple topics. Now, I wouldn't say this was a simple topic. It was a question on whether, on why specifically you had matrix multiplication the way you had it, as opposed to using a different form of matrix multiplication. It just seemed somewhat arbitrary, and he just provided a very, very stupid demonstration, as I later learned, having seen demonstrations from more sophisticated individuals. From people who are more aware of who are more knowledgeable about mathematics. Uh, he, his demonstration was really rather crude and didn't get to the heart of what I had asked him. But nevertheless, he took every opportunity during that demonstration to ridicule me and to insinuate that I was really stupid for having asked that of him. I would say that having asked that of him was a mistake, certainly, and it was an unwise thing to do. Of course, his insults were just insults. And he also ridiculed my beliefs, at least those that I hinted at, the ones I had. I think it's typical for an abuser to try and destroy the things that a person prizes, and certainly he doesn't have any ideals, he doesn't have anything that he believes in, so perfectly normal for him. For example, I went to Sighet at one point. That's a town in Romania where there's an old prison which existed to keep political inmates during the communist era. And there was a field trip there, in the sense that we would come and listen to the stories of people who had suffered there through the communist era. It's a really tragic place. Some real heroes died there. Iuliu Maniu, for example, Romanian politician, was, well, supposedly had very strong morals, and I really enjoyed it. When I came back, my father asked me about it, and he was really, really keen to ridicule the people there. And at that time, I was 17 or so, I was a scumbag, as in I thought that I could somehow bond with him a bit by also accepting the ridicule towards the people whom I had found to have had mistaken views at that during that field trip, and who had expressed them to me. Just very, very simple perceptions that the state and religion had always been there to oppress the masses, and that's certainly a true thing, but it's fairly trivial. When I talked to I just mentioned to my father that there was this guy who was doing that. I was saying that about masses being oppressed by church and state. He then turned to also laugh at me and ridicule me, and that annoyed me. I think I was fairly narcissistic in high school as well, in the sense that I did carry with me certain traits of my father's, and I did shed them off. I removed them from myself over time, but back then I didn't have them, and that was really, really bad of me to have said that about the guy. and to have colluded with my father's ridicule. So I know how his ridicule was, it kind of went on over the years, and I think it was something that always stayed with him. For example, very recently, he talked about medicine to me, and he just mentioned, oh damn, this medicine is not like mathematics at all, and he was just bragging about his knowledge of mathematics. In fact, it was a way of praising himself and ridiculing people who did study medicine. Incidentally, my work kind of involves things very similar to medicine, so perhaps that was also an insult towards me. But he does want to ridicule people. And to give another example here, he recently, last time I came to him, mentioned how the showers weren't working in the apartment block. He lived in an apartment block, because everyone decided to start washing on New Year's Eve, but he hadn't washed for, I think, a whole week either, and he was about to wash on New Year's Eve, and he just complained to me about how everyone else in the block were slobs because of that. Unbelievable, I know, but that's what he did. So he was also very abusive in that sense, very full of ridicule towards my mother. To give an example, he read an email from his sister once and laughed at it, and laughed at her. And unfortunately, my mother, she was schizophrenic. That's after she became schizophrenic. She laughed at the email as well. She laughed with him. Incidentally, he had also read my diary when I was 14, and my mother was with him at the time, and she had also read my diary, and she made a mention of something she had found inappropriate in it. Well, a comment on the politician of the day, whom I didn't like. Not that the comment was rude, wasn't obscene or anything, but it was just something I disagreed with him. And he ridiculed her mental condition after she developed schizophrenia. He called her crazy, he called her all sorts of names. He laughed at her when she scribbled down some notes about different places in Europe after looking at maps, about when she scribbled down numbers, presumably numbers of people who were killed in the war that she imagined was taking place. And when she said that, oh, you know, what you do is important, I know that, but what I'm doing is important too, when she said that, he just laughed at her and told her she was a nutcase. That's how he brought her down, and you don't do that with schizophrenic because you just cripple them even further. In fact, being nice to schizophrenic people actually helps them be healthier, really. So that's what he did towards her, and he did a lot more. For example, even before she developed schizophrenia, he called her, he used a pet name for her, which was the name of a Congolese dictator. That was his pet name for her. That was his nickname for her. Name of a Congolese dictator, Sese. And he sometimes had this expression saying, Sese, jest proste? Meaning, Sese, are you stupid? And he tried to make it sound as though he was playing around, as though he was being cute, and of course he wasn't. That's just one example of many. I noticed that my time for the video is running out. YouTube only allows 15 minutes worth of recording per video, so I'm just going to end here and continue about lies, about my father's lies in the next video.